Back to the weekend show. You're watching the political segment of the show. The topic of discussion today is the role of traditional rulers in nation building. Before the advent of colonialism, the traditional rulers played a very key role in nation building. They were very powerful and very revered in our society. In today's society, it's a bit different. The Constitution, as amended in 1999, does not have a particular role for traditional rulers in governance. Joining us on today's program to discuss this, we have
Vincent Otaokpukpu. Sorry if I killed your name. He is a constitutional lawyer. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you.
Did I get the name right?
Yes. Somehow.
I'll
pardon you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to the program. So I see you came prepared with your copy of the 99, the Constitution as amended in 1999. So tell us, the Constitution explicitly does not mention the role of traditional rulers in governance. However, what role do you believe they can play in nation building, given the fact that since time immemorial, they've sat as, revered leaders in our society that the public really listens to and takes advice from?
Yes. The functions and the responsibilities of traditional rulers in Nigeria and in governance is quite enormous. Prior to the 1960 independence, pre-colonial era, the colonial masters succeeded in some part of colonial administration in Nigeria because of a partnership with already existing traditional institutions. You know the indirect rule, the famous indirect rule, which was in operation then, and they tried to rule through to reach the people through their traditional institution. That was that. But I wouldn't know why that rule, presently under the 1999 Constitution, was excluded. So there is exclusion of the traditional institution and traditional rulers in the present 1999 Constitution. And that's why their offices has remained moribund at the whims and caprices of executive arm of government, especially the governor and chairman local government. They go cap in hand begging for whatever it is because their role is not constitutionally guaranteed. There are so many things they can offer, especially now that we are talking about community policing. Security-wise, the best people suited to render security advice and also anchor issues of security should be the traditional rulers because they know their domain, they know their people, they know how effective and how possible it is to govern the people and how to reach out to the people. They have direct touch on the people than the government. So I think this present amendment that is being the 1999 Constitution is undergoing is also an opportunity for us to get it right. Because if you look at section 21 subsection 1 A and B, it provides for that the government shall do everything to promote, if you permit me to read, it says the state shall A, protect, preserve, promote Nigerian culture which enhance human dignity and consistent with the fundamental objectives. B, ensure development of technological and scientific studies which enhance cultural values. So that is the only area that issues of culture, which has to do with the people and the traditional institution, is mentioned in the whole 1999 Constitution. So apart from security too, they can also be on advisory, render some advice to the government in terms of what actually is the need of their people, in terms of provision of water, in terms of provision of health facilities, in terms of road. They are the people who are close to the, directly close to the people and are in a better place to give advice as to that. In my community today, my traditional ruler, I know him one-on-one. If anybody says any stranger in my community, it is very, very easy for you to dictate that. And I told you last time on this platform, we operate a security outfit called Vigilante Services. And the traditional rulers in partnership with the police, we pick these people, constitute them, and inaugurate them. They report to the DPO, they report to the traditional ruler. they are being checkmated by traditional rulers because they are citizens of the people, from the community. If they go against what the culture and what is obtainable in the community, these people will call them, will always call them to order. So their role is very, very enormous, is very, very important and key. And I advocate they should be recognized and their functions protected under the Constitution.
So as much as this isn't captured in the 99 Constitution, most states have ministries or MDAs for local government affairs and chieftaincy affairs. I know we have that in Benue State. I also know that in places like Adamawa, like you rightly said, they've helped with the peace building and conflict resolution process. Yes. Now, do you feel it is the role of the federal government or the state government to make this constitutional? Because for different states, their cultures and traditions are unique to them. So should this be done at the center or at the state level?
It should be at the local government and the state level. Part of what we're advocating with respect to devolution of powers, because there is too much concentration of powers at the center. So certain powers in the exclusive legislative list, this is an opportunity to lift those items and place them. I don't like the word federal legislative list, concurrent list, and the residual list as currently constituted in the Constitution. It should be changed to federal list, simplicity, state list, local government list, and chieftaincy also. I advocate should be placed for under the state list and the local government list. The business of creation of autonomous communities and the local government autonomous administration, traditional institution administration should be left in the hands of the governors and the local government as the case may be. First class chief may be regulated by the state, while second class and third class chief as the case may be regulated by the local government. So it is better done at that level.
I wonder, is there the political will to actually get this done? Because when we take a trip down memory lane, we see that the issue of the dwindling of the powers of the traditional ruler started since the military junta in 1966, yes. And due to their success in dwindling the powers of the traditional rulers, they became more powerful. So today, with the way our governance system is presently constituted, with the governors at the helm of affairs at the state level, the president at the helm of affairs at the federal level, do you believe that they would have the political will to want to share powers with these traditional rulers to get things to, some sort of semblance of what it was, in the pre-colonial era?
It is that departure, it was that I believe that they will not have that mind to begin to share power with the traditional rulers. It is not done. A case in point is that of Kano State, recently under discussion. What is the fear of the governor? That maybe dominance. Maybe the man is waxing stronger and stronger and stronger, and a lot of people pledge allegiance to the emir of Kano, the Emirate Council. So that is why I believe, and because of what happened in 2019 general election, there are a lot of people have to look up to the emir to direct them where to go to. So it is also, it constitutes a threat to the governors. So most of those first class chief and that has a lot of powers and, the governors will not always feel happy with them. I want to say in emphasis what happened in Kano State about the dethronement and, permit me to go that angle, please.
No problem. The
dethronement and banishment of Emir Sanusi. That action, that arbitrary action of the governor amount to executive recklessness and is tantamount to a breach of the constitutional provision. I would want to begin to argue about the provision of Section 8 of the Emirate Law that seems purported to give him such powers. He does not have such powers. In that section, that law gives you the power to constitute a panel to investigate alleged allegation against the governor. You are the prosecutor, you are the judge, and you sentence him without hearing him. So it is unconstitutional, it is illegal, it is null and void. But the dethronement, he may have power to dethrone him under their law, no problem. But the procedure that you followed is wrong and constitutes repugnant to natural justice equity and good conscience, and also incompatible with the provision of Section 36 of the 1999 Constitution, which reads, if you permit me to read, I will read. Section 36 of the Constitution. It deals on right to fair hearing. In the determination of civil rights and obligations, including question or determination by against any government authority, a person shall be entitled to fair hearing within a reasonable time by a court or tribunal established by law. So for you to, because that committee of the executive was exercising quasi-judicial function of hearing allegation of whatever they had against Sanusi, they ought to have invited him and give him right to be heard before dethroning him. You may have power to dethrone him, but you must give him right to fair hearing. There are cases that have, like the case of Supreme Court have ruled in the case of Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee against Fayemi. In this case, Fayemi challenged some provisions of Legal Practitioners Act, which established the Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee to the extent that they have the power to raise the allegation against any legal practitioner, constitute a committee, and still hear it. So the court said, no, you cannot be a judge in your own case. The power to constitute, you don't have the power to raise your offense by yourself, that this man has committed offense. You are the one, and you are the one to determine that. Somebody among the legal practitioners should be the one to write against a fellow practitioner that has done wrong. So Supreme Court in that case set aside the proceedings of Legal Practitioner Disciplinary Committee because they failure to give Gani fair hearing. Another case in point was the case of...
Sorry, let me interject, because when you read the letter by the Kano State government, and he clearly elucidates the laws that were breached by the former Emir of Kano. He didn't attend the traditional council's meeting. He completely disregarded the rule of law, according to him, allegedly, by the Kano State government. So are these not enough, you know, what's the right word to use now? Grounds, you know, for his dethronement?
They are not enough. I've said before that I don't want to look at the laws, whether the laws in the Kano State Emirate law empowers them to remove the governor arbitrarily. I don't want to look at that. But what I'm saying is that such law, even if it exists, that gives the governors to constitute committee, raise allegation against the emir and remove him arbitrarily, is repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience, and incompatible with the provisions of the Constitution. Section 1 of the Constitution says, this Constitution is supreme, and its provisions shall have a binding force on all persons and authority throughout the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is the supremacy. Then the inconsistency section, which is section 1, subsection 3 of the Constitution, provides this law is supreme. If any law is inconsistent with the provisions of this Constitution, such other law is to the extent of its inconsistency be void, including the state emirate law of Kano State. There is a case I wanted to cite to underscore this, the importance of fair hearing. It's very important. In the case of Gauba against the University of Maiduguri, Supreme Court ruled. In that case, there was a riot in the University of Maiduguri. One Gauba of which the personal property of the Deputy Vice Chancellor was vandalized. The Vice Chancellor constituted a committee headed by the same Deputy Vice Chancellor whose personal property was vandalized. They refused to invite Gauba, the prime suspect, according to them, and they spared him. The Supreme Court said, no, you cannot be a judge in your own case. You cannot constitute offense, hear the offense by yourself, and carry out punishment, and also set aside the exercise they have done. So the right to fair hearing is as old as life itself, and as old as Garden of Eden. Supreme Court has borrowed a lot of limp from the judgment of the English court in the case of Aro against the University of Cambridge. He said, the English judge was quoting, very interesting. He said, I remember to have had it observed by a learned man upon such occasion that even God did not pass death sentence upon Adam before he was called upon to make his defense. For God said, Adam, why have you eaten the forbidden fruit? God, omnipresent, knew what Adam has done, but God still called him Adam. It's an invitation for Adam to say his mind, and Adam said his mind, my Lord, that woman where you give me. You see it. So fair hearing is very important. Above this, the banishment of Sanusi constitutes a breach of Section 35 of the Constitution, which grants him right to dignity, right to personal liberty. I will cite you with emphasis the case of Olise Abakoba versus DSS. Abakoba in 1992 or thereabout was traveling to Hague, Netherlands, to participate in a conference. At the Lagos International Airport, he was arrested by the DSS. That was the case of DSS, the director of DSS, Vato, and they confiscated his passport and detained him. The Supreme Court said no. You cannot just detain somebody at will. You just come up one day, see somebody, you arrest him, detain him at your will. That you do not have such powers under our law. I will give you another instance that suits with this quagmire and the executive rascality of the governor of Kano State. That was the case of Shugaba Dama against Minister of Internal Affairs. Shugaba Dama contested the election under Nigerian People's Party or whatever in 1979 and won, became a member of Borno State House of Assembly. Suddenly, because of his overbearing influence or whatever might be the case, the Minister of Internal Affairs, with the authority of that be then, in 1980, arrested this young man and deported him to Chad, went to the border of Chad and dropped him there. You are no more a citizen of Nigeria. The Supreme Court said no. You cannot do that. You cannot arrest that action of the government constitute a breach of a right to personal liberty, a right of movement, of freedom of movement of Shugaba Dama. So this also suits in all purposes with the present scenario. So that action constitutes a breach of the right to personal liberty, right to movement. And if you look at the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, an African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights, Section 6 states the same procedure as to fair hearing. Section 7 also provides that the duty of state member of Economic and Committee of AU to promote the liberty and the movement of
I want to interrupt you, Vincent. You've mentioned executive recklessness and executive rascality, which are interesting words to use. However, isn't this contradicting what you said about devolution of powers? Because by virtue of giving the states and the state governors these powers, so for instance, in Kano State, what happened was they tried suspending him. They found out that there was a bit of illegality in it, and so they assembled the state assembly, and within a day or so, passed this new Emirates law, which has been used to dethrone the emir. Now, with devolution, it means it gives the states and local governments the power. Doesn't this now contradict you by saying the states should be in charge? Shouldn't the federal government, like in all the cases you've cited, the Supreme Court had to rule, so it went back to the center to make these decisions. So aren't we wasting our time if we give the state governors these powers?
No, if you look at Section 6, subsection 6 of the Constitution, it says that powers, judicial functions, questions, determination of the court are given duties as to settlement of dispute between government and another, and between individuals and the government, as the case may be. So the power to determine whether someone has committed an offense lies on a court of law. It is not in the mouth of the executive arm of government. You cannot control the arm of the executive under the provisions of Section 5 of the Constitution, and also usurp arbitrarily the powers of the court with respect to settlement of dispute and what have you. If I look at the case of Ojukwu against military governor of Lagos State, where the Supreme Court have also said that. So I don't want to go into there.
Let's put a peg on it. We'll take a short break. Let's pay the bills. We'll take a short break. When we return, more on the topic of the role of traditional rulers in nation building. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. You're still watching the political segment of the weekend show. We have an additional guest in the studio, Solomon Adodo, the president of Nigerian Youth Council. Thank you for joining us. And Mr. Vincent, thank you so much for sitting tight. So we've been discussing the role of traditional rulers in nation building, and Mr. Vincent has so clearly elucidated and spelled out cases that are similar to what the former Emir of Kano is going through today, and how the Supreme Court has ruled. And before we went on break, you were also answering Andy's question whether the onus or the power should still rest in the hands of the federal government or that of the state government. So please go on and conclude your thoughts.
Yes, I will quickly say that what I've said, that the power should be listed as under the state control or the local government, as the case may be, is not contradictory as to the recklessness on the part of the executive, what has transpired in Kano State. The power to settle disputes lies on the courts, not executive or the committee under them. They can may hear any whatever they want to hear and make a recommendation. But in this case, they didn't hear from the man. They just constituted themselves, raised allegation against him, banished him, and dethroned him. Now, if you have to place that power to regulate a traditional institution under the federal government, that would be too quite enormous on the duties already existing placed on the president of Nigeria. In my state, Anambra State, we have 166 communities in Anambra State. So tell me how the president in Abuja will sit in the comfort of Aso Rock and begin to now issue order and begin to, somebody will have some issues in one of the communities in Anambra, and they'll begin to call the president, look at what is happening behind okay, Fulani herdsmen are behind my house, so please, come. The president will start to give directive to all the communities, entire 36 states of Nigeria. It will be too big for them. It is part of the responsibility that should be placed on the governor. And you believe me, you see what is happening. Motokun, the governors are coming together, the South-South are coming together, the Southeast too. But I just know that we have had this for quite a long time, which has to do with the vigilante services. So it is good that we have this in place, is to help us to checkmate the rate of kidnapping going on in almost every part of the country today. Because if there is an inflation of strangers in my community, I've said it before, it is the community leader that somebody will rush and report. Somebody has entered in our community. He's hiding under there. It has happened before. Igwe will say, go and get him. Who are you, young man? If the man cannot express himself, they will hand him over to the police. The issue of armed robbery, issue of kidnapping, issue of herdsmen attack and all those things, clashes between the farmers and the headers should be allowed to be handled by the traditional role. Let us not express that fear that the governors will still abuse it. There is nobody that you give too much power that will not abuse it. They will still abuse it. But that is why the judiciary and the courts are there. So wherever the person's rights have been infringed or wherever the government seems to have gone beyond their powers, the judiciary is always there to checkmate them.
Let me bring in Solomon here. You're president of Nigerian Youth Council and working with a body of young people. Some research has shown that the influence of traditional rulers has dwindled over time. So you look at the tier 1 traditional rulers like the Oni of Ife, the Oba of Benin, the Sultan of Sokoto, the Emir of Kano, and back in the day, when they made a pronouncement, a whole mass of people followed in respect of whatever it is that they declared. But today, it seems like their influence has dwindled down, especially amongst the youth. How do you believe, or do you believe it's important that we sort of revive that sort of respect and reverence for these traditional rulers?
Thank you very much for having me. Now, we at the National Youth Council of Nigeria have so much respect for the traditional institution. We strongly believe that if we need to solve, or if we have to solve the current national challenges and even avert those that are in the incubator, there needs to be a thorough synergy with the traditional institutions. You have said it very clearly, their influence have been whittled down over time, dwindled, and almost phasing out. Now, the deposed Emir of Kano was a voice around which the Nigerian youth could, or the Nigerian youth could listen to. He spoke on contemporary issues. He was redirecting the mindsets of young Nigerians. Now, we expect to see all of this coming from all the various traditional institutions. We should also know that times have evolved. Some of these traditional tools are centuries old. We've had some of them since the 15th century, 14th century, and back coming forward. Things have evolved. The world has changed. Even the British monarchy, there is a lot of evolution there and changes there. So we should understand that the way a traditional ruler comported himself in the 19th century should be far different. The issues we are talking about today are far different. You understand? And so if the Emir of Kano, the deposed Emir, began to speak on some issues, I think he was not wrong, but rather trying to go with the trends of the time. And I tell you very clearly, a lot of youths learned a lot from him. And the issues he was speaking about are real issues. Today we have the issue of the Almajiri matter being dealt with. We at the National Youth Council of Nigeria are very deeply concerned about that. We link all of these things with the issues of insecurity around the country. The war against Boko Haram has raged on for more than a decade now. Now, the military has always crushed this Boko Haram, defeated them severally, but the more they are defeated, you find out the more their ranks burgeon, increase, multiply. What are the factors behind this? Look at what has happened in the Northwest, Zamfara, Kaduna, Katsina, and all of these areas. A new strain and trend coming in, banditry. You know, we call it banditry, whatever name you call it. Violence, destruction, economic waste, and all of this. Now, the traditional rulers are not just supposed to be silent in their palaces. They have a role to play in nation building. They have a role to play in averting all of this. They have a role to play in saying, okay, how best or in what manner can we channel the energies of these individuals that the society has classed Almajiri? We believe at the National Youth Council of Nigeria that every human is very important. Even in the midst of those that you call the Almajiris and the rest of them, we can tap potentials from there, harness these potentials to productivity and all of that. So the emir, the deposed emir, was speaking on all of this. And we want more traditional rulers to speak on contemporary issues. When you engage on contemporary issues, finding solution to the problems plaguing our nation, then your relevance comes to play. And this is what we want to see all other traditional rulers doing, engaging with the youth, engaging with the masses. They are there. They are like the constant factor. They are like the symbol of stability in society. Because the governors will come and go, the senators, members of the House of Reps, they come and go, but the traditional institution has some semblance of stability over a period of time. So there needs to be a traditional revival that will bet the intellectual revolution amongst the Nigerian youth. If our leaders, our traditional rulers, are telling us the right things, what we need to hear in terms of nation building, telling us to shun drugs abuse, telling us to redirect our energies to more meaningful ventures, telling us to control our appetite and so many other factors, we, the National Youth Council of Nigeria, will amplify their voice. And if there is concerted effort, everybody playing their role, I dare say, Nigeria will move to the front lines of developed countries.
Solomon, just to ask, in nation building, diplomacy and advocacy plays a major role. As traditional rulers, shouldn't the right channel, because there are some allegations that have been made, like disrespect to the office and the Emirates law, shouldn't the traditional rulers play a role, an advisory role to the executive, to the state government? So most of these great takes and opinions and comments which we have seen, don't you think that it's better when the traditional rulers work together with the governors? Because there's a case of outshining the master, there's a case of stealing the limelight. But advocacy also means coming to the table to say, you know, you're the governor. I've been here for the last 10 years. I've seen two different governors coming to play. This is what I feel we should do. Wouldn't that be a better way to go, as opposed to the governor saying one thing today and tomorrow you see someone who you have literally appointed go on national TV, and because he maybe has more credibility or relevance, he says something exactly different? Don't you feel that they should work together and the traditional rulers in an advisory capacity as opposed to coming out and giving all those public statements?
Now, you cannot relegate the position or the role of synergy in all of this. If we must develop as a nation, as states, as communities, there needs to be synergy, there needs to be mutual respect, there needs to be understanding, and there needs to be moderation. That is very clear, you understand. Howbeit, in leadership, once you have shot to the front lines of leadership, you should also know that it is not about who takes the limelight. It is all about development. It is all about the right things being done, not who takes the credit. If Nigeria is developed today, if we have our youth coordinating themselves properly, a proper orientation in conduct, in character, and in all of this, if we have good roads, health centers, and the rest of them, we don't care who did it. All we care is that the nation has developed. So now, we shouldn't be even talking about outshining any master, because in leadership, you should not even look to be a master. Leadership is about service. It's about humility. It's not even about taking glory. It's in Nigeria here we have found situations that people try to lead and they want their trumpets being blown. Leadership is selfless, altruistic service. And if you have elected for that, you should just take it as such. History will beckon on you when the time comes. So what we had play out in Kano State was a clash of interests. That is very clear. It was a clash of interests, and I believe it would have been better managed. But now that we have come to this state, and the milk is already spilled, how can we avert such situations in other areas? We saw the case that played out, I think, in the Oyo State between the Olubadan and the then governor, you know, and so many other things like that. There have been other crises between traditional institutions and governors in several places. But what we are saying as young Nigerians, let there be synergy. We don't care about their personal interest and ego. All we care about is we need figures that we can look up to, people that can tell us what is right. And when you talk about traditional rules, like I told you, there has been an evolution over time. I read an article on this, I think, a few days ago, and they talked about the traditions instilled by certain emirs in the council or in the emirate since, I think, 14th century and so on, and reinforced in 1908 when the British came, and so on and so forth. But you see, things have changed. A lot of things have evolved. We are in a digital age today. We are not in the Stone Age, we are not in the Renaissance time, in a digital age. So many things are happening. And the traditional institutions also need to evolve. They need to hook up with the current trends. If we are not following the trends and anticipating the future trends, we will not be able to cover all of this. Already we are talking about the physical damages of insecurity. Look at our Yahoo boys that are doing all this Yahoo. If they go into thorough security, cyber crimes, cyber wars and all of these things, can we cope with this? So we need our traditional institutions or our traditional leaders to also research. They should position themselves in the minds of the youth, not as old, stoic individuals that we cannot relate with. They should be at areas or levels that we can relate. They can tell us that this is what is happening on so many platforms and so on and so forth.
Solomon, I do agree with you. Like, we need to be able to reform our institutions to fit our current digital age. So, Vincent, let me give you the final word here. I'm sure you do agree with most of the solutions that Solomon has preferred, but we all know that the practicality of these things cannot be justified except it's amended in the Constitution. As of today, the traditional rulers have actually no role to play in democratic governance as stipulated in our Constitution. So, Vincent, how do we go about, in practical terms, of amending this Constitution to see that the traditional rulers can play more of a viable role in nation building? 30 seconds, please.
Yes, we must look at the pre-colonial era to look at the relevance, the importance of the traditional institution. Reasons why the colonial masters succeeded in their administration and governance of the people back then. And I don't know why the military had to remove them, but this is an opportunity. I call on National Assembly to, as a matter of urgency, seek to bring in and recognize by the constitutional amendment the role of traditional rulers in Nigeria as to the governors and to the local government, especially in terms of provision of security of their people who are close, very close to them.
That's a fine place to live it. Vincent, Solomon, thank you so much for your time.
Thank
you so much for joining us in today's program. Don't forget to watch us on our YouTube channel and our website, www.weekendshowng.com, and follow us on social media at WeekendShowNG on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. We'll see you next Saturday, same time, same station. Do stay blessed. And helping us to sign out, we have a lovely young lady. Take it away. I've been a while on the road, oh I know you know. Sometimes a stranger in my home. Keep going back and forth through the open doors. I'm still learning to be still. This girl ain't going anywhere.
This girl ain't going anywhere. I can promise you this, now I know for sure. This girl ain't going anywhere. I've driven miles and lost sight of where you are, but yet you see me all along. Maybe I'm the last to know when I've gone too far, but yet you're always by my side.